I have had the privilege of traveling to Egypt as a part of my studies of Islam. And if you can go sometime, I heartily encourage you to go. Only not now. As it turns out, Al-Qaida linked Muslim devoted men, some people call them terrorists, have begun targeting tourists. 11% of Egypt's economy is based on tourism. It is a vital part of their economic lifeblood. This past Sunday, Islamic terrorists detonated a bomb on a tourist bus in the Sinai region. 3 South Koreans were killed. The bus was on its way to the St. Catherine Monastery. This is a monastery that was built in the mid-500s, and it was placed there because it's the area in which Moses saw the burning bush. It is a beloved destination point, a pilgrimage point for Christians of all denominations. And the Muslim Brotherhood linked, Al-Qaida linked, devoted Muslim men who are following in the footsteps of Muhammad have made a public announcement saying, tourists stay away. And they've said in the late part of February, they are going to deliberately start killing tourists. This marks a significant departure from Muslim terrorism. In the past, they have tried to kill policemen, military personnel, but they said that they are deliberately setting out to upend the economy of these traders. Now, some of you might think, well, why do Muslims kill Muslims? And in a horrifying situation like this, the devoted Muslim men get a twofer. They get to kill Christian pilgrims on their way to a Christian site and disrupt the Muslims that are in charge of the Egyptian government. You might think, well, why do they want to hurt their fellow Muslims? Muhammad spoke about people who called themselves Muslims and who said the words of the Quran, but that they didn't mean them. And Muhammad made it clear that if somebody who called himself a Muslim was aiding what he called infidels, that it was appropriate for Muslims to kill the treacherous Muslims. One of the key mistakes that foreign analysts, journalists, people working in our State Department make is they fail to see the Islamic world, especially devoted Muslim men, who we call terrorists, or devoted Muslim women who are raising their sons to be devoted Muslim men, which we would be tempted to call terrorists. The mistake we make is that we fail to understand what they're doing by looking at them through the eyes of Muhammad. A second mistake people make is to read the Quran and think that that's the sum total of the Muslim faith. It's not. The Muslim faith is similar to the ancient Orthodox and Catholic faith. They had the scriptures, but they also had the church councils, and they had the creeds. They had the faith develop over time. In the Muslim framework, they have the Quran, but almost as important as the Quran is the example set by Muhammad in his life. All right? For example, there's nothing in the Quran that specifically forbids embroidery. The images of, say, birds or animals. But Muhammad, during his life, walked in on his young child bride, Aisha, and she had just purchased some pillows that had embroidered animals on them. And Muhammad looked at them and said that God would not favor the house or enter the house, or angels would not enter the house where there was the images of animals or men. And he turned his back and he left. And so that example that he set is why in Islamic art you don't see animals. and you don't see the images of men. It's because of the example that he set. Bring it all the way back to Muslim terrorists. The simple fact is that Muhammad killed people with his own hand and ordered the execution of people who were killed in his presence for the extension of the Muslim religion and for the establishment of a Muslim state. So these devout Muslim men, who we call terrorists, are simply following in the footsteps of the founder of Islam, Muhammad himself. And they're not going to stop, friends. They're simply not going to stop, because the record of what Muhammad did is clear, and their devotion to following his example will only be stopped by death itself. That's what we're dealing with Islam, and in Egypt especially right now. This is the voice of resistance.